So, Ayinde, what did you want to talk about today?
Interestingly, I wanted to talk about community, followers, and work a little bit of loyalty into that. But really and truly, what's the difference between followers and community? And of course, that's a real deep topic. So I'm not sure we can get deep into it, but there are some top level things that we can kind of begin to discuss and might actually make for a good part 2 or 3 or 4. Depending on how deep you want to go. I know you have your second part of your discussion from last week. Just remind us on what the topic is.
Yeah, so this is part 2 of how to get transformation-based customer testimonials. I could say it properly now, I practiced.
Transformation-based customer tutorials.
Testimonials, sir. not tutorials.
All right. So we got to keep saying it so it will stick. So it's transformation-based customer testimonials.
TBCT, transformation-based customer testimonials. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about what it is, it's easier to remember. So transformation-based meaning you want them to testify about how they were transformed by whatever was delivered to them, product or service-wise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's what you want to get. All right. So since I have to follow up, I'll go in and go first since I have to follow up, and then you will take the floor and do everything that you need to do. Yeah?
Sure. Go ahead.
So this is part 2 of what we just mentioned, the transformation-based customer testimonials. And in order to start this, for those who missed the last podcast that we did, I want to remind you what we were talking about, what I was talking about at that time. And thankfully for me, every week when we post the podcast to our website, itsgoodtorelate.com, I do a summary of what we discussed before. And so I'm just taking a certain part of that summary and I'm going to just do a review of what happened last week. So basically, transformation-based customer testimonials. Stop collecting reviews, start documenting transformations. And the summary goes like this. For most B2B testimonials, they're frankly useless. They were great to work with or highly recommended are the participation trophies of the business world. They don't sell, they just take up white space. I was really arguing that for a service-based business where the product is intangible, there's only one thing that matters. It's evidence of change. And one of my quotations from that is, in order for people to buy from you, the key thing they need is evidence. They need evidence that you could deliver a service, and that evidence will give them social proof and will teach them how to treat with you, or rather, how to trust you when it comes to your service that they are going to engage with. So that's important. And the last part of that is the before and after logic. And a powerful testimonial is not about how nice you are. It's about the emotional and practical journey. So how people feel and what was the thing that changed for them. You want your prospective client to see themselves in the story. And I said that the whole crux of the matter is that there's a particular type of testimonial that you want. You don't want a generic testimonial, but you want the testimonial to be based on the transformation that you brought to the client. Your goal is really to capture the story arc, right? What life looked like before they dealt with you or they engaged you, and what life looked like after they engaged with the service that you offered. Just a couple tips on that. Pro tip, get them on video, right? Video captures the tone and emotion and the personality that text cannot. And if it tells you they had a particular response about a solution that worked, you want to get that raw emotion on camera and not have it as a kind of sanitized text post. So that's what you want for that. So that's the basic summary.
I think the most important thing you said there so far that really stood out to me that I think businesses should really pay attention to is stop collecting reviews and document transformation. I don't know, that just really stood out. You may have said it last week, but this week it really stood out and jumped out at me. So stop collecting reviews and document transformation. So in other words, that says in my mind it's better to do 2 transformations than to have 15 reviews.
Yeah.
2 real world transformation. I was here and I'm here because of this, that this company is doing for me. Yeah, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And the more you can show that, the more credible you'll become as a business. The more credible you'll seem, because if you can help somebody solve a problem, other people with the same problem are more likely to trust you to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And once they can see that you've done that, then they'll be like, okay, great. This person knows what they're doing. So rather than just saying good job, we don't know what good job means. That could mean a ton of different things. But if the person said you did this, this, and this, and this is what the outcome was, then it's easier to believe the potential client knows exactly what they're getting themselves into when they engage you for your service.
Yeah, and I think also in this era that we live in, where there's such a high level of lack of trust, and also the ease at which you can say, "Oh, John said this," or "Tom said that," or "Susie, we dealt with Susie on this project, and she was absolutely blown away." Actually seeing somebody talking about their transformation in a real way carries a lot more weight and a lot more trust and a lot more believability. And people wouldn't even trust you with projects that you didn't talk about, because they say, maybe if he's an expert in this, maybe he can help me with this aspect of it. So then you start attracting people who may not necessarily have been directly in the line of business of the reviewer or subject of your transformation video. So yeah, I think getting that video out, capturing that transformation is very important.
Yeah. And before I go into the second part, which is the 3-phase structure of asking, I want to just agree with what you said. And we've seen it happen to us where, because somebody trusts us with a particular type of work, they then trust us to deliver on a different type of work maybe they have not had us do before. It might be related, but we've never done it. And that's happened to us in recent time, where we have been given the opportunity to do certain types of work that is not related to what the client usually would give to us. So that is a big deal. And they kind of just go on the fact that we know you'll deliver because we see you deliver in these ways multiple times before. And that's important. All right, so now let's get into to what to ask, because at the core of this is that you have to interface with your client, you have to interview them, and you have to ask very specific questions. And that is done in a 3-phase structure. And the 3 phases of the structure is before, during, and after. So before the client hires you, what does that look like? What was their state? During, what was the client's experience during engaging you? And after, what was the outcome? So before, during, after are the 3 phases that you want to ask about when you're getting these testimonials. Because again, what you want to cover is the entire story arc of the experience. So when you get that content from them, you want to say, this is how they started, this is how they ended up, this is what happened in between for them to get there. And so that's important. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the before. What questions would you ask about the before section of the client interview? Now, please note that I'm going to say this in a way that is as if you, the service provider, were interviewing the client. That's how I'm going to read it. But it is also a big recommendation from us that you may not want to interview the client. I mentioned last week that clients are usually more honest when they are not speaking to you about who you are or about how you have helped them. If they are speaking to a third party, they generally will share more, because it's kind of awkward talking to somebody about what you think about them. It's a little awkward. I mean, from a human level, that's true. So I'm going to read it as if you were interviewing a client, because I know there may be some smaller businesses who are listening and they may have to do it for themselves, but this is how you do it. So the before. So the first question you want to ask in that section is, what were you struggling with before you hired us? What were you struggling with before you hired us? And what do you think that is designed to get, Ayinde?
I mean, I don't want to use jargon, but the word that came to mind is pain point. What is it that is preventing you from achieving your own goals. Because a lot of times companies are going to be very good at what they do, and they're going to need help in things that are adjacent to what they do. So usually there's something that might be causing a problem that they then have to get outside help to solve that problem.
Yeah. And so I agree with what you're saying. The core of that question is to identify the problem, to bring the problem to the fore. You want to bring that problem to make it very visible. So anyone else who's coming will know that, oh, this is what the client was dealing with, and they can immediately relate to that if they have a similar or same problem. So you want the client to articulate that, right? So that's the first question you want to ask. The second question you want to ask is, did you try other solutions? What you think that might be designed to do, Ayinde?
I didn't think about that as a potential question. What I think it will help you kind of zone in on what the actual problem is, because sometimes businesses can misdiagnose. And if you try something and it doesn't work, it's almost like a doctor trying to diagnose a problem that is not very obvious. They would try certain things, and what that allows you to do is eliminate those things as possible issues. So that's the thing that comes to mind. Maybe they are incorrectly diagnosing their problem. And so if you try other things, it kind of helps you focus in on what the real problem might be.
Right. Yeah. And so if you ask the clients, did they try other solutions? What you are basically doing is you're agitating the problem. You're showing them, that the person who's listening, that these are the things that they attempted but failed. So you know that it's not something that they just wanted to stay the same. It's painful enough for them to have tried other solutions and not having gotten one. Now they're coming to you to solve that. And obviously the reason you're talking about this is that the spoiler alert is that you did help them solve it. So you're kind of highlighting what went wrong in the process. So you agitate the issue so that people could see what was tried and what failed. Right. So the third question you want to ask is, well, why didn't the other solutions work? Why hadn't they worked?
Right.
So you want to try, did you try other solutions? Because obviously, if they did, you know it didn't work, because they have now come to you and you have solved it, right? That's why we're talking about this whole thing in the first place. So the other question is, why hadn't the other solutions worked? Yeah. And that goes even deeper into agitating the problem. And if somebody's having a similar problem, it will cause them to relate to it even more. So now you're actually hooking this person into this process, which is just like mine. This is the thing that I've experienced. So it's more than just saying it was good. It's actually walking through step by step about the challenges that they were having with this particular problem and what you helped solve. So you are actually exposing all of the different things that were happening before you came in and had this intervention with them that was causing them pain or was causing them loss of money. And pain could be several different things. It was causing them time, losing them employees, whatever the problem might have been at that time, right? And the next question you want to ask, the fourth question you want to ask is, how did this problem affect your business or life? How did this problem affect your business or life? Like, what was the nature, the impact of this problem? What specifically was it causing to go off course? Right? Did it cost you 10,000 customers a month? Did it cost you to have to be able to manually do some process that cost you time? What specifically was happening with this problem, and how was it affecting your business or your life? Of course, if you have a business, the problem will be impacting your business. And if it's a person, then it will be impacting their life. So you have to ask that question to, again, highlight what the problem exactly was. And then the last question you want to ask is, why did you choose us? Now you're getting into the transition part into, well, we now turned up. Why did you choose us? And it'll give them a chance to draw the contrast in between all of the other bad things that have happened to them, and now the good thing that has come in to make the difference in their process and to solve the problem. And that's the big contrast you want at the beginning of these testimonials. Yeah.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, that's very important. I think that contrast is going to very clearly communicate or begin to communicate the benefit of choosing a particular service provider over another. And that's something you really want to communicate. That's like a key area of convincing and persuasion that would be necessary in a content like this.
Yeah, and it's not so much to convince or persuade her, because at that point they already bought in it. They bought in that they want this thing problem solved. It's already painful for them. What you're doing is getting them to that decision faster.
Right. No, I was thinking about somebody watching it in the future once the content is created, once the video is done. So
Right.
it's a persuasion point for that third party who then could possibly become one of your clients.
Right. And so what it does is that even if they are not ready to buy the service or hire you, then they have in their mind that you solve this type of problem. So it already works. And so it builds your brand in their mind as somebody who deals with a specific type of thing. So yeah, so that's good. All right. So that's phase one. So the before questions that you're going to ask. Let's go into phase two, which is a shorter set of questions. Only 2 questions in here. So this is what is happening during their engagement with you. So the first question you want to ask about that is, what was your experience working with us like? And you give them an open door to describe what that experience was like. And this is where some of the emotion might come in. And they will begin to say some of the things that they would say if you left them alone, which is, it was good. And then you kind of follow up with some specifics in terms of, oh, what was good about that? And there's different ways you could expand that conversation to get more detail. But the initial question you want to ask is, what was your experience working with us like?
Yeah.
Yeah. And go ahead, sorry.
No, just asking what was the follow-up question to that?
Right. And so the second question in this section of during the engagement is, were there any specific moments that reinforced this was the right decision?
Right. So now you're getting evidence.
Yeah. And if the engagement was really good, then they would have something to say about that. They would say, when you all did this, or when this happened, if there was a breaking point in the engagement where they realize, yeah, man, this is exactly what we need, then they would bring that up at that point. And that's why it's always important to get the testimonial as soon as possible, so that over time it wouldn't lose its impact, because people tend to forget things. They tend to forget details. The impact tends to go away when other business things come to the forefront. So it's important. So that's the second thing you want to ask them during for the during section of the engagement that you've had, right? And lastly, let's talk about the after. So we did before, we did during, and let's talk about the after section questions that you'd want to ask them in these client testimonials that are transformation based. So there are 4 questions in that section. So the first question that you'll want to ask them is, what specific thing has changed in your business or your life after working with us? So it's a kind of version of something we've asked before, but this time you want to make it clear as to what you want to get. You want this specific thing that has changed, and you allow them to articulate that freely. Yeah? The second one in this section, and this one is, okay, I'll ask you a question about this. So the second question you want to ask in this section is, how do you feel about that? And what do you think that question is designed to get, Ayinde?
I'm not sure what the question is designed to do, but I like a question like that because you start to tap into emotion. And emotion is one of the biggest drivers of consumer behavior, of human behavior, period. Even though we are very much trying to be rational, we can never understand the impact of emotion and the impact of feelings. And what you're actually doing there, when you ask someone to talk about their feelings, they're now going to associate a feeling with this result, a feeling with this company, a feeling with this brand. And that's going to create a very strong bond that is going to drive future behavior. So you're definitely not going to forget, because, so like I remember my grandmother, she started having not mental issues. But forgetting, she's forgetting a lot. some levels of dementia. I'm not sure if we ever had that like properly diagnosed, but let's say dementia. When you played music from her youth, she remembered everything. And her mood completely changed. And that's because there's a big element of emotion inside of music. And that triggers things that are using different parts of your brain. And so you're going to remember, you're going to have positive associations. It's something you're going to want to talk about. So I like that question about asking, how did this thing make you feel, or what were the feelings that you'll associate with this particular engagement with this particular service provider?
Yeah.
But what did you think is the question is designed to capture?
Well, a big part of it is that you want to match that feeling with the feeling that the potential client is having. And so if they have similar feelings and they got relief, then the client could say no, the potential client could say no, well, I want this feeling of relief. This is the feeling I had. I don't want to feel like that anymore. Right? So I want to feel this way instead. Right?
So you give them a goal to shoot for.
Yeah. You give them a goal. And that could be that they were elated. And as I mentioned last week, there was one client of ours who said when that person gave them the solution that they were looking for, they wanted to cry, which means that they were so happy about it that they wanted to cry about it. It really had relieved the pain that they were feeling for a long time. So you want to capture that as well.
Yeah, very strong emotion.
Yeah, right. The third question you want to ask is, and a follow-up question is, what impact has it had on other areas of your business or your life? So the first question was what specific thing has changed? And then the third question is what impact has it had on other areas? Because we're going to assume there are knock-on effects from this thing being solved. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It kind of points a finger at over-delivering. So as marketers, it's always good if you under-promise and over-deliver. And so when you meet the expectations, but then you exceed the expectations because now you're impacting areas of the business that, this is working better. Our front desk is doing this now, and these things are improving. That is a indication and identification of an over delivery of what was expected to come out of this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one, which is kind of where you would want to end up. Now, this question is a question that if you have ever dealt with any bank, any insurance company, any communications company, if you pay any bill whatsoever, you will know this question. You're very, very familiar with this question. And unfortunately, these institutions ask you this question with very little context. And the question is, would you recommend us to others? Right? Globally, that is a standard question to determine how well they are doing. Because if you would recommend this company to somebody else, that means that you trusted them, you believe in what they did good service. So that's the global metric. But without all these other details, that means less and less and less and less. But if you ask all these questions, you ask what happened before, during, and at the end, and then you say, would you recommend us to somebody else? Then they can end the interview emphatically by saying a big yes. And sometimes they can include the why, because now they've talked through the entire process and they have a lot to say at the end.
Yeah, I was thinking asking that question in isolation, both from what went before and also not having a follow-up to that, is a mistake and an opportunity that businesses are avoiding or leaving on the table. Because to me, if you ask me, would I recommend XYZ? And I say yes or I say no, I want to know why. Either way, I want to know why. I want to know why you would recommend us, and I want to know why you would not recommend us. A lot of times people might recommend you for reasons you don't even understand. So they might say yes, but you might be thinking, it's because I have the best XYZ, and it's really because of this other thing. It might be the salesperson they were dealing with, which wouldn't always be the case. It might be the location of the business, and you didn't even know that. So the why, I think, is very important. Like finding out, would you recommend us, but why? And probably even to whom. Like, who do they see as our key target audience, having gone through the process with us and having experienced our products/services? Who do they see as somebody they would recommend our products and services?
Yeah, I love those 2 points, Ayinde. I love those 2 points. I love them because I didn't think about the why in that way, as in you might not know why this person says you're so good. And what your perception is of why they chose you might not actually be the reason they chose you. And if you could find out what the customer actually thinks about you, then you can use that for your marketing in the future. Then you could use that to create content that is relevant to what they think is important. So you're not assuming things anymore. You have actual data or details from the customer that you can use now to create and leverage these marketing materials that speak specifically to why they would choose you. So that's a really important point. And the second point you make is really very important too, as in at the end of the process, you want to get referrals. And this is something that we're experiencing now. We are going through a phase where, hey, listen, we did all this work for clients. Let's ask for some referrals, right? And not just hope that they refer us, which people have been doing, but go directly and say, is there anybody like you who we can work with? Is there anybody who you would recommend us to? Can you give us a name and a number? Can you pass this on to them? Do you know anybody who has these type of problems that we can help with? And getting that is so important. So those are 2 excellent points, Ayinde, at the end. Yeah. Let me just give some extra tips and wrap up. So these are some extra tips that you could use when you're doing these transformation-based client testimonials. So after you've asked all these questions, these are some things to note while you're asking them. So you want to make sure and ask open-ended questions. All of these questions that I've stated before were open-ended questions, which means you don't want to get a yes or a no. But even if you ask a yes or no questions, you want to follow up to get more details for that, right? You always want to follow up and ask things like, can you tell me more about that? Interviews in general, that's a good thing to say, a good thing to ask. Can you tell me more about that? Because you want to go deeper and get more details so that you have more to work with when you have to put together these testimonials. A third tip is let the people speak freely. Don't stop people. Don't interrupt them when you're interviewing them. Let them speak freely, and then you can edit it for clarity later on. Right? Let them talk. Let them say what they have to say, how they want to say it. Even if you think that they're making a point that you don't understand, let them talk. And you can follow up with a question, record everything, and then you go in and you edit it for clarity later on. And the last tip I would share is make sure and repackage your testimonials in different ways. You could do social posts, emails, sales pages, put it on your website. Almost every page of our website has some kind of testimonial on it on our current website. Not all of them are transformation based, but they all say good things. And so it's always good to put those things out there when you get them. Yeah. That's it for me. That's part 2. And that's the last part of transformation-based client testimonials.
Transformation-based client testimonials.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to talk about, Ayinde?
So I was thinking about followers versus community. And I know as businesses, especially in these digital marketing space, social media space, we're always chasing followers. And we know some of the caveats that go along with chasing followers. We don't necessarily want followers for the sake of followers, but it's a good thing to have. And it's not a bad thing to have. You do want people to follow you so that you could, both from a real practical sense, which is people are following to consume your content, but it also helps the algorithm, which we should avoid, but let's not talk about it. It also helps the algorithm having people follow you, because more people follow you, they say, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. We're going to show his stuff to more people. But I was thinking about it in the context of building long-term community, and how can different types of content and platforms impact one way or the other. So if we are making decisions with regards to traffic, getting traffic and getting followers, even those two have some differences. So if we're building content that drives traffic, and there are a few platforms that kind of push traffic over relationship. So things show up and you don't even have to follow them. So early days of social media, you followed everyone that you needed to consume. So if I wanted to consume your content, I had to follow you. But the way the algorithm works now and how some platforms are set up, what happens is that you consume a bunch of stuff that's on your For You page, as opposed to building direct relationship with this person. And so I was just thinking about the need to build community as opposed to just generate traffic and followers. Yeah. So that kind of leads into a first question of why. Why would you want community and as above just traffic? So community is like the essence of multi-person relationship. And so that makes it a very important aspect of your digital marketing. You want to build relationship. And we are all about relationship and its long-term impact on your business. So we talk about relationship-led marketing. So businesses, we feel, need to focus on building relationships. And especially in today's world, sounds like an AI writing, in today's world, there is so much fragmentation taking place, and social media is changing so quickly, and the way people use social media is changing so quickly. It's important for you to build a tribe and to build a community, not just people who will encounter your stuff because they're scrolling, but people who will come out and seek out your stuff because they have similar values, because they have similar interests, because people around them are saying the same thing. And I kind of look at Relate Studio's activity and the role that community plays in what we do. So, like the stuff we've been doing on LinkedIn, and you in particular doing on LinkedIn, and I think about our relationship with people like Jared Best Motley.
Jared West Mitchell,
sorry. Those are two people that I know.
You combine the two names together. That's what you did.
So you up to Jared Motley. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Jared Best Mitchell. All right. So I look at your relationship with him, and I can say, he could deny it, but I can say he's part of our community, and then that has other roll-on effects, and then people within the community talk to each other about the things that we are doing. So relationship is a big reason why I think we need to build community. Another one is a kind of self-reinforcing branding, or like a self-lubricating kind of machinery. So when people belong to a community and identify with the community, you don't have to brand them or brand towards them too much, because they start defining themselves. Yeah. So you have this kind of self-reinforcing branding. And I think what it also does in a very practical way is create sustainable, predictable long-term sales when you're part of a community, or when you see yourself as belonging to a community. Because what happens is that you are forced by your own self, to kind of describe it that way, to continue to patronize this particular business, because it is now not a transaction. It is now your duty as a member of the community to participate, and participation will look like actually buying stuff eventually. In long term, it will stabilize your sales, because you're not chasing every new customer. You have these relationships, you have this community, and belonging to the community means whenever that need comes up, the first thing that's going to come to my mind is the community I belong to, is the engagement I have. So if somebody thinks about, I think I need to do a transformation-based testimonial video, who am I going to think about? Well, the guys who we follow on LinkedIn, who I was wearing red, and I was talking about content marketing. I listen to them probably every week, sometimes every Monday. So the community, being part of the community, pushes you in a particular direction. So I'll ask, what other reason would you say it is beneficial to build community? I just gave three. We could probably add to that. So I talked about relationship, I talked about self-reinforcing branding, and I talked about sustainable, predictable sales.
That last one is important. That last one. Here's my thing about that. I think that anybody who is starting a business right now, once, and not every business it will apply to in the same way, but part of what they need to think about is community building. And what does that mean? It means that they have to get people to buy into what they believe in and buying to what the brand is. Is there anything else that I would add in, as to why community is important apart from this building a brand? Because customer acquisition is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, customer acquisition is expensive. So if you ever hear the term CAC, which is customer acquisition cost,
Yeah.
and most businesses don't calculate that. But if you were to see how much it costs to get a new customer, then they would know that if you have one already and they could talk to someone else, that is like one of the best ways you can get somebody to buy from your business, that you don't have to spend money to acquire this new customer. They basically are a referral engine for you, especially. And sometimes those people haven't even bought from you yet, but they believe in what you're doing. They believe in the way that you share. They think you are. And just this morning, somebody left a comment on a post that I shared, and the comment was, "Hey, you're really helping out the community here." That was the person's comment. And people get it. He said, "Absolute fire of a post, my man. This is giving back to the community. Wow, learned a lot." That's a comment that was left on one of my posts this morning on LinkedIn. And so this person has never bought from me. This person, we're not even the same line of business. He's in business development. But he recognizes how what I'm sharing is impacted, what Relay Studios is sharing is impacting the community overall. So yeah.
It reminds me of an old story that we had back when we used to do wedding photography. And there was this young lady who consumed all of our content. She was not married. I don't even think she had a boyfriend at the time. But in her mind, she's part of this community. And she would talk about us. But one thing she said is, whenever I get married, these are the people I'm going to call. Whenever I need this product or service, these are the people I'm going to call. Whenever I need to recommend somebody for something similar, these are the people I'm going to recommend. And so that kind of leads me into thinking about another thing. It has me thinking about loyalty. And how do you define loyalty and its role in developing relationship and building community? And there are three aspects to loyalty that I think about. One is that they're going to buy from you over and over, right? That's the first and obvious one. A loyal customer is going to buy from you. So you want to build loyalty so that they do exactly what you're saying, which is reduce your customer acquisition cost and make each purchase more profitable. Each purchase becomes more profitable. The other thing that they do is they talk about you. If they're loyal and they're part of a community, they're going to talk about you. So they start doing some of your marketing for you. And the third thing that makes a loyal customer is particularly important in the digital age, which is they will publicly associate with your brand. So they're going to share your content. They're going to consume your content publicly. And that could even extend to the real world. They might wear polos from your company. They might walk around with a bag from your company because they are proud to be part of the community. So a big part in driving community has to do with building loyalty within your customers. And that loyalty will allow you to be more profitable. It's not just the fact that you're going to continue to get sales, but you actually get more profitable sales because your gross profit, net profit per customer goes up when you have loyal customers. If you have to be chasing your purchases or buying your purchases, as they sometimes say, you actually become less profitable and more susceptible to short-term, medium-term shocks to your business. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine myself wearing like a Lego shirt. And I was just thinking about that when you said people will even like wear gear that you have because they really believe in anything that you do. But there's some other brands I just would never wear. I would just never wear, no matter what it is. If somebody could give me for free, I just wouldn't wear it. And so, yeah, so that is a representation of how people believe in a brand and believe in you. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to shift the conversation related to what you were just saying there. But I wanted to talk about the best platforms for building community. But before I go too deep into the best platforms, I was thinking about the content types. And one of them that comes to mind is value-based content, values-based content. So in other words, content that clearly communicates what my values are. So as you were talking about willing to wear certain brands, people do that if they think this brand reflects some part of them. So I think about, as I say think, the campaign was actually Think Different. You remember that old Apple campaign?
Mm-hmm.
When Steve Jobs just came back into the company as the interim CEO, and he fired the agency at the time and decided to do a whole new brand marketing campaign. And the brand marketing campaign featured no specs, no features, no computers. I don't think that ad campaign had any computers or phones in the no hardware at all.
Mm-hmm.
All he did was show a bunch of iconic, earth-changing, significant visionaries and luminaries in their respective fields. So he had people like Amelia Earhart,
Mahatma Gandhi.
Gandhi, Martin Luther King. So these people who over the last 20th into the 21st century have made major impacts on the world. And what that campaign for me was doing was saying, these are our values. If you want to associate with Apple, these are the values you're associating with. We are all about changing the world. We're all about taking risks. And now you might be a little graphic artist, now starting 15, 16 years old. You see that and you think, oh, I want to be a world changer. Even if I'm just doing graphic art, or even if I'm just making music, that's who I want to be. I want to be like John Lennon, who was in the ad. Or I want to be like anybody else you would have seen in that. So what is actually talking about its values? So when we think about types of content that build community, try creating content that exposes and talks about what is important to you as a business owner, what is important to you as a service provider, because that's going to allow them to connect on that level. But it also goes back to what we were talking about earlier about feeling and emotion. So that campaign ended up being a very emotional campaign. So people are going to identify with that. And yes, you have to make a good computer. At the end of the day, he has to make a good computer. But that is not going to cause him to differentiate himself in a real way from his competitors and build that community. And we know Apple brand is one of those iconic brands that have real strong community behind them. And I think one of the ways they built that was to create content. I mean, back then we call them ads, was to create content that was values-based and and really communicated what was important, not just to the CEO, but to the company as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very good. I just want to plug 2 points based upon what you said there. So one of the things that you mentioned that is important, well, the Think Different, first of all, is massive campaign, and people still talk about it to this day, including us. But also, Jobs had a point of view. He had a point of view. He had something that he stood for. So when you're doing these things, when you're building community, you have to have a point of view. You have to stand for something and stand against something. Mm-hmm. It's not generic. The worst thing it could be if your community building is generic. You do want to polarize people. You don't want people to come to your side and say, I belong here. And now some people take that to the extreme, but you want to, what I call, meaningfully disagree.
Right.
You want to meaningfully disagree with the status quo, with things that may be normal, with the way people have done things. And inside of that meaningful disagreement, you will find that people will take your side as well.
Right. And to me, it's not even necessarily thinking about the disagreement part of it, but the taking a stance part of it. So if you stand somewhere, there are going to be people who don't want to stand there. And that's fine. But you have to stand somewhere. Yeah. So so that kind of fits into content type. So that's a big part of the kind of content you have to create, content that takes a position and as you say, meaningfully disagrees with some other thing that might be happening, so that your tribe could come towards you. The other type of content I think that helps with community building is behind the scenes. So behind the scenes type content kind of shows yourself in a real human light. It's like there's no AI. They're going to see you as real people. Also, collaborative content is going to help build community. So inviting guests onto your podcast, for example, creating different kinds of content, mashing up user-generated content with company content. Those kinds of things are going to help you to build your community. And then, interestingly enough, applies to what we're doing now, having a regular content, a regular show that is consistent, not necessarily voluminous. That's not the word I'm looking for. Not necessarily high volume, but regular.
What do you mean high volume? You mean that it's a long show?
Just a long show, plenty episodes.
Oh, okay.
You know, some people think, you have to do volume, you have to do plenty episodes. But no, I think building the community comes from the predictability and the consistency over a period of time. Yeah. So we are 11 episodes in. We have just started to build our community as the It's Good to Relate podcast. I think if we continue and we can say 50 episodes, 100 episodes, that's when you can really begin to draw in people into the community, because they what it does is that it brings a certain level of expectation of what to see on Monday morning or Tuesday morning or what to see next week. And you begin to look forward to doing that. So any other content type you think is particularly suited to building community?
Well, I would say any content type that gets people to reply, like anything that requires engagement. So things like, of course, you have the live shows like what we're doing now, where you can get people to come in the comments and do stuff. And you could have Q&As. So you do Q&As with your community, especially if you have one that's private, like a literal private community. You could do Q&As with them. You could do responses to user submitted questions. That helps build community a lot. So you really get the human element inside of the questions that people are asking as well. There are probably a couple more, but those are the ones I can think of now.
Yeah, and that's a good list. That's very good. And we kind of want to head into wrapping up now. So I'm just going to end with the best platform for community building. And I'm not going to get into too much detail, but my top 3 and my top first option might surprise some people, but my top 3 are Facebook, which is 3rd, LinkedIn, which is 2nd, and WhatsApp, which is 1st. Yeah, I know some people might be, WhatsApp? Yeah, I think I'm going to put WhatsApp as my 1st. Of course, it highly depends on your target audience and also the country that you live in. So like the way we use Facebook is different to the way other people use Facebook in other parts of the world. Or the way we use WhatsApp is different to other. So you have to know your market and you have to know, but I think these 3 are particularly good at building relationship. Anything you want to add to that to make it a top 5?
And the acronym is WIFTY. WIFTY is WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. That's the Caribbean. That's the Caribbean acronym for your engagement. Starting from the most important, when the meta properties go together, Instagram and Facebook, and then the rest. They can all be effective depending on the type of business you have. You just have to know where your audience is, and then concentrate your energy and your time and resources there.
All right. So I just want to end by leaving a question out there for CEOs, business owners, marketers. The question I want to leave is your content building traffic or building community? Look at your different pieces of content and ask yourself, and we're not saying traffic is bad. We're just saying community has to be part of what you're going after. So is the content, look at your last 10 posts. Is it designed to build community or is it designed just to drive traffic? And you should have some community posts in there. Any last thoughts?
No, but let's talk about what we learned today.
Yeah.
So we learned so much today. We did the rest of what our client testimonials, which are transformation based. You see, if I get it wrong now, I just switch it around and it still makes sense. So we learned about that and the questions you have to ask. That's something you should go back and review. It's really important for when you have to speak to your clients and get the actual testimonials that will get you more business. I won't go into the details. I just say go look at last week's episode, come and see this episode, and I'll probably try and put it together in the summary so that you have all the questions in the summary. And what you're talking about with community there, what stood out to me is the fact that everyone needs a community, whether they think they do or not. And it has to be built deliberately. You have to have a point of view. You have to stand in a particular place, stand for something so that you can attract the right people. And over time, those people will talk to other people, and your community will grow.
Yeah. I think what really stood out for me from the first half of this morning was stop collecting reviews. I know I said it, but stop collecting reviews, document transformation. So capturing and showing that transformation, I think is beneficial in 3 ways. It helps reinforce your importance to that particular client. It also shows and identifies things that might allow you to be better at what you do. And of course, it is a tool for attracting new business and new clients into the business. And what else did we learn? We learned about the importance of community and the impact that building community will have on relationships, and therefore driving loyal customers. And loyal customers we know are going to make you more profitable over the long term. So you want to have that community, that relationship, and those loyal customers. Some good content types for building community: values-based content, I think, is at the top of the list. We talked about BTS, we talked about user-generated content, we talked about Q&As. These are different types that build a lot of engagement and can allow you to build stronger communities. And acronym for the best platforms, just give us that acronym again, Juma.
That's WIFT.
Yeah, so WhatsApp,
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And that's in the order of the importance.
Yeah, my top is definitely WhatsApp.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining us today on It's Good to Relate. You can get all of the episodes and the summaries at itsgoodtorelate.com. Don't forget to check for it there. Ayinde.
Thank you all for taking part. Thank you all for listening. And
Good night. There we go again. We'll get to it eventually. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.